Okay, good morning. It looks like we have a few classes that are in our attendee box over there. So my name is Kate Lee. Welcome to Manufacturing Day 2020. I'm the Executive Director of Education and Workforce for the South Bend Regional Chamber. You will also see Allison Hersig you may see her box. I don't really understand how all this works. Some things appear and some things don't. But she's the Program Manager for Education and Workforce and is the behind the scenes person on all of this work. Some quick housekeeping. Thanks to everybody for being a part of this and attending this virtual session. This is all new to all of us, and we're really excited about how this is going and the great conversations that have been made possible across counties and states due to this virtual format. All attendees are muted. So if you're an attendee out there and you feel like nobody can hear you or see you, you're muted on purpose because we are recording all of these sessions and it's for the privacy of the students. So attendees are all muted, but if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function to ask questions or share comments throughout the conversation. We really want student questions to be submitted to our panelists. This session is scheduled for 40 minutes, so be sure to get your questions in. We also want to thank all of our sponsors for Manufacturing Days 2020. You can find the full list on the Manufacturing Days landing page, which we hope you've already visited or will soon. And this session is sponsored by Centier Bank, who's also a presenting sponsor at Manufacturing Days 2020. They and our other sponsors recognize the important role manufacturing plays in our region and want to help ensure you learn about these businesses, the great career opportunities they offer, and the local education providers who can prepare you for entry-level success and help you continue learning and moving to the next level in your career. So we have a great panel ready to tell you about engineering career pathways and the ways you can prepare locally for these careers. Our moderator for this panel is Jen Dumud, and I may have said that right or wrong. I'm not even sure. I should have asked you that question before we did this. Executive Director at the Manufacturing Growth Alliance in Michigan. So welcome, Jen, and thanks for moderating this panel.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to be part of this conversation. I know it's going to be a fantastic one. I'll continue to remind our students to type in questions in the Q&A box. We'll be reviewing those questions throughout our conversation today. So I am excited to introduce our panel members for today's conversation. First, we have Cara Boyles, who is with the City of South Bend. We also have Dave Goodenough, Director of Robotics and Technology at Edgewater Automation. We also have Stephen Gonzalez, Engineer at Paragon Tempered Glass, and Dan Shoup, who is a Mechanical Engineer at the University of Notre Dame. Again, welcome panelists. So glad that you're part of our conversation today, and we look forward to your comments. So I'm going to dive right in and start asking our panelists questions. We have a long list here, so if we don't get to all of them, I'm confident that we can follow up with you on some of these the responses to these questions. So the first question is going to go out to Dave, and the question, Dave, is how did you choose your career?
Well, it's kind of been in working for the last 40 years, but right out of high school, right in high school, I had a tour of a local automation house and I wanted to be a part of it. So it was through a tour and it was like, okay, I like this stuff. It's new stuff all the time. We're working with robots. We're working all through technology, and it just excited me and basically got into an apprenticeship and went through that route there and ended up doing engineering at the place. And one thing led to another. Now I'm here where I am. So that's kind of been a path throughout the whole time frame. It started at the ground floor, but I've been in custom automation for 40 years now. So.
Thanks for that response, Dave. I'm also going to ask that same question to Kara, who is, again, a city engineer within South Bend. So do you mind answering that question as well? Give a woman's perspective of how did you choose your career?
Absolutely. So it was probably in high school that I found that math and science were my more enjoyable subjects. And typically, I think many of us who enjoy math and science, we hear the same mantra or message that, oh, if you like math and science, it would be a natural fit then to study engineering. I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, which was the home base for Caterpillar. So there was a lot of manufacturing in that sense that surrounded my world. My father worked for Caterpillar. He actually started working the very first day I was born. He was young and he started as a janitor and worked his way up and actually became a quality control engineer. And so I think that influence was always there, that somehow taking that passion for math and science would fit well into the engineering world.
Great. Thank you so much for that response. Dan, the next question is coming to you. And the question is, how did you first become interested in the industry?
Well, kind of dovetailing on the question of how did I get into engineering or choose that, I really didn't have any great direction in high school. I did okay in school, but I was interested in sports and girls, and didn't have any direction or plan for college. So a friend of mine's dad actually suggested that I would be a good engineer, because he'd seen me take apart four-wheelers and work on stuff, and he directed me that way. And he actually suggested that I start with if I got a degree in dual electrical and mechanical, that I would be set, for life. So I went to Michigan State, got the mechanical engineering degree. I dropped the electrical part of it because the mechanical is much more hands-on and fits into what I like to do. But then as an internship during college, I worked at the Cook Nuclear Plant up in Bridgman, Michigan, and a lot of mechanical things going on there. And that's more of the power industry, utility part of it, supporting lives as far as electrical use, and the big machinery, big power. That's what really interested me. So I've moved around a couple times throughout my career. Worked at Cook, worked at different manufacturing places here in South Bend and in Elkhart, like Kunz Wagner Electric, making modular control buildings for gas turbine power plants. And I worked at Elkhart Brass, making firefighting nozzles and control systems for refineries. And now I'm working back at the University of Notre Dame and their power plant, been there 12 years. And the stability of power generation and the big toys, the big moving parts are what I really enjoy.
Great. Thank you so much for all that insight. Next question will go out to Stephen. And the question here is, did you know anyone who had an engineering job while you were in high school? So as our current listeners are, they're in high school. And did you have anyone while you were in high school to kind of look at what they're doing in the engineering field?
No, I didn't actually. I didn't even know it existed, to be honest. As far as engineering, what that was all about, I didn't know that until like the military, and that kind of fell into my lap to do civil engineering. The only closest thing to what I do now is industrial arts. We had, we made some hangers or something like that for like a coat rack, and that was kind of my intro into actually what I do now. But it kind of faded away once I got into high school. That was more junior high, but I really didn't learn more about engineering until after high school, and then jumping into the military. And then I think that once I got that, then it pretty much took care of itself as far as learning engineering and actually all the different types of engineering.
Great, thank you. And you were a little bit mumbled on that response. I couldn't hear it 100%. So for our next question that we'll toss out, and we'll toss it out to you again, Stephen, if you could try to maybe speak up just a little bit, so make sure that our students can hear you, that would be fantastic. Will you tell us about your career pathway, your education, training, and any job changes that you've had? And I'll give you a thumbs up if we can hear you okay.
Okay. Yeah, like I mentioned before, it was all through the military as far as the engineering aspect of it. That's where I learned civil engineering. As far as surveying, GIS, GPS kind of thing. But that it was kind of an intro to CNC because it all uses data points and things of that nature, AutoCAD. It opens up a lot of doors with software learning, just different things that you can do with the software and to, as far as on the computer versus, surveying the land and tying that all together. That was pretty neat. I thought that piqued my interest and just it went from there. So.
Thank you very much. So we're going to toss this question to Kara, and will you share with our students, what does a typical day look like for you?
Sure, absolutely. So as Jen alluded to, I work for the city of South Bend, and I specifically work in what is known as the Department of Public Works. So Public Works involves all of the built environment. So you think about your environment that you live in, but the built environment. So the roadways, structures, buildings, things that are above grade, so things that are above ground, things that are also below ground, things related to water, so how you are able to have safe drinking water in your schools, at your homes, how we're able to flush our toilets, and that water is actually treated before it goes back into the environment. So all of those aspects are part of my typical day. As city engineer, I'm responsible for all of the capital projects that take place in the city. So that is a public works project that might be a new roadway, a new water main, a new sewer main, an improvement at the wastewater treatment plant, an improvement at the water treatment plant, a parks project. So if you happen to venture to the East Bank and you've seen the new Howard Park, that would be considered a public works project in which someone on my team would have been a project manager. So I think our typical days are never dull. We're always dealing with not only these planned projects, but we're also dealing with, at times, emergency responses. So if the city experiences some sort of natural disaster, which we've seen in the past, we saw in 2018, the river flooded. We are highly involved in projects related to that. Of course, in the aftermath, not only during, but in the aftermath, there are projects that require repair. And I have a team of about 10 engineers and 5 inspectors. And so overseeing all of their duties as engineers and inspectors, they're out there working on various projects anywhere, depends on the year. We see anywhere from 25 upwards to, depending on the year, $50 million worth of capital improvements in the city. So that keeps us pretty busy.
Thank you. So many of our students are starting their first job, depending on where they're at in their high school journey. So the next question is going to go out to Dave. And this question focuses in on your first job. So with your first job, how old were you? What did it teach you? And what do you use in your today's job that you learned back in high school, that very first job? So give us a sense of what started Dave on his work path that eventually ended up being an engineer.
Well, it really started, I was on a farm. I basically grew up on a farm. So I started pretty young working for my dad. And my dad also had a dairy supply store to where we put up silos and silo unloaders and milking parlors. And so I was very in deep, hands-on, understanding how to put things together. We were crawling up, my brother and I were crawling up silos, putting silo unloaders, you name it. We did a lot of stuff. I also put milkers together and we did all this stuff. But I think the biggest thing in high school for me was there's that aha, what you're saying here, like an aha moment, right? Of, what does SOHCAHTOA mean? In trigonometry, yeah, it's a pretty good way to find out how to do that stuff. But after I was out on the shop floor and I started saying, well, why does this do this? SOHCAHTOA came into a big factor of, that worked really well for me on this shop floor. So there were some things in engineering, mostly in the mathematics, helped me a lot as far as that goes. That's probably my biggest thing, the science, basically trying to understand fluid power, going from there, understanding that they're telling you in physics what fluid does, right? Water towers, you put it up in the air and it gets pressure coming down. You don't get that until you actually get out of the school and you start putting, oh, now I understand why they're talking about that. So there's a lot of things that I started, but for me, I basically started probably really young, working odds and end jobs for my dad, and then worked into a bunch of stuff from his dairy supply store. And that was where I started. And then right out of high school, I started into machine building.
Excellent. I love this question, so I'm going to also toss it out to Dan. Again, I think this gives such great insight to, where you started, your work career, even if it was, high school or even prior. So Dan, I'm going to restate the question so you have the scope in your mind. What was your first job? How old were you, and what did it teach you that you are using in today's environment?
Well, I had a few summer jobs throughout high school and college. The first meaningful job out of college that I had was with a mechanical contractor, and here in town, they utilized union pipe fitters to work in industrial plants. And what that taught me is you don't know what you don't know. You graduated from college, you got a piece of paper. That doesn't mean that you know everything. That is just the starting point. So that's something that, I think is important for the students to realize that, whatever school they choose to go to, you're not going to come out of there as a finished product. You're not going to come out of there knowing everything that you need to know. It's just a starting point. You can go in so many different industries, so many different directions, and you're going to learn specifics within that industry that you would never get in college. Like Dave mentioned, cooling towers, that was a heat transfer discussion in college, thermodynamics at Michigan State. I deal with them all day at Notre Dame, and I understand them a little better now than I did then. But at the mechanical contractor, you're dealing with people that didn't necessarily go to college. They went through a internship or a apprenticeship to be a pipe fitters. They're just as valuable as any part of the company. They know their line of work very well. You need to treat them with respect. You need to work together as a team, and you need to continue to learn yourself. Again, when you first get out of school, you don't even know how much you don't know. That's just a starting point. So that's what I learned from my first job.
Yeah, I always like to say if you're not growing, you're standing still. And the most successful people are those that just continue to immerse themselves in knowledge and understanding. Really appreciate that response, Dan. The next question is going out to Stephen. Just a reminder, Stephen, your first question, we had a hard time hearing you. So if you would please answer the following question for us. Why is what you do a great career choice for students to consider? And I'll give you a thumbs up if your audio is working well.
Okay, I got some headphones. I don't know if it's
Yep.
Is that a little bit better? Okay. As far as the career field that I've chosen, and I like it because it's hands-on. I don't know students out there if they like hands-on plus the interaction with people. I work with the production floor, so I get a mixture of working with customers and translate that into a product, which I get to go out on the production floor and watch it being ran and actually produced with people. What I like to do is a lot of people out on the production floor they really don't know what they're making. They just know that it's a product or part. I like to go show them what it actually goes in, and then that kind of gets the oohs and ahs. Oh, that's pretty neat. Like some classic cars, some of them are buses, dealing with the glass manufacturing. We do about anything and everything. it's pretty neat for the classic cars, and just to see the faces, how they light up, and they put a lot of pride in their work, just knowing where it's going and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, if you like hands-on computers, I think that's, for what I do, anybody interested in that, and with mathematics and science, there's a lot involved in that too. It's very, I think it's enjoyable and it's fun, and it's not like the thing that I find is working at a job that doesn't feel like work it's so much enjoyable than going to a job that you really don't, you dread going. So finding something that you're very interested in, it doesn't even seem like you're working.
Great. I'm going to toss that same question out to Kara. Why is engineering a great career choice for our students watching today?
Sure. I'll sort of tailor that, of course, to civil engineering, and just sort of also an opportunity for me to explain that in the path of civil engineering, there are various disciplines as well. So I kind of gave a broad overview when working for the city and addressing the built environment. You as a civil engineer can practice specifically the structural portion of civil engineering. So that is the focus on buildings. Environmental, so more of the water and wastewater side. Geotechnical, so what's happening below ground. We obviously need to understand what's happening with our soils in order to build upon them. And then transportation engineering, so I'm looking more in terms of our roadways and our network of streets, the signal interconnection. Of course, you can't drive through any city or community without having paved streets, striping on the roads, signalized intersections, or stop controlled intersections. So I think that all of those things you've probably experienced in your life, and that kind of leads me to the point that as a civil engineer, there's a lot of career stability because what we do is everywhere. I think that for myself personally, when I was choosing to become an engineer, it was sort of alluded to me like civil engineers are always needed. There's always something out there for us to be working on, and it's challenging. I find that typically as a civil engineer, you're going to practice in a specificity of one of those disciplines. So I don't typically practice any structural engineering because most of my education is more environmental engineering related. So that really makes me an expert there, but not in those other realms. But in order to be in my role, I really have to understand the big picture, right? The big picture of how all of those things play together, and different engineers get into the site details, specific details of each one of those areas. I also think it's kind of fun and I'm sure the other guys on here can agree that typically as an engineer, you don't spend all of your time in an office. So if you're someone who needs to be moving and mobile and doing other things, we spend a lot of our time kind of going back and forth between. So there's a lot of, I spend a lot of time now in meetings. I must have set like 70% of my time in meetings, but in my earlier career, I was spending more time at construction sites, at project sites, and kind of moving back and forth between those two, or even just traveling to different places. So I think that that's another good bonus in our careers.
Sounds exciting to me. I wish I would have went into engineering. No. So the next question is going to go out to Dave. And the question is, I'm thinking of this through the lens of our students. Hopefully we're getting them excited about engineering as a pathway for them. They may be having some questions. Well, are there special skills that are needed, certification, education? Can you help our students on the line just understand the skills, certifications, education of how they would take next steps to explore engineering as a career?
That's a good question. There's two different ways that I see you can get into engineering. One's, you get in, you take some excitement, you go to college, you do all that. You can do the other ways, kind of in the way that I went through, where I kind of went through an apprenticeship. I built machines. I actually, ran machines, metal forming machines, got into engineering, and then I started teaching other guys who were on the drafting board at the time, AutoCAD. So that's kind of how I started going up, and I started getting more involved in engineering. So it was more a hands-on path for me. And then I also ended up being the vice president of engineering at a company, and to where I wanted, kind of like to where Kara and Dan said, there's two paths, two people that you got to work with, and having a guy coming up through a shop floor and having a person coming through out of the college, both of them going together into one engineering department is one strong engineering department. That thing's huge. It's amazing. So as far as, the math, that definitely helps to get you excited about it. I know for me, I'm also a mentor on a FIRST robotics team, and we've actually hired kids. I got 7 kids that were in my team that we actually hired at Edgewater, and that gets people excited. We had 2 kids that actually went up to Michigan Tech. They went through that. They came back to us, kind of got that. That got them more interested in engineering than anything that I've ever seen in my life. It also shows work ethic, which is big. You need the work ethic to be able to do this. But for me, watching kids go through FIRST robotics and seeing them get the hands-on training there, to talk to mentors that are in engineering that can help them through all that stuff is huge for us. So that's one way that I could see them basically getting involved in having an understanding. There's also the drafting class. Well, we're not even drafting classes anymore. It's kind of an old school term. It is the 3D design. There's so much 3D design like SolidWorks or Creo or stuff out there like that have in high school, you can actually get certifications on SolidWorks certified professional or the associate or that type of stuff. So getting that gets you more involved with it. Having that on your resume is huge. Is having that for a lot of us out here in the world. If you're getting into mechanical engineering and the manufacturing sides, having that type of stuff to where you can actually see, oh, they've actually went through and did a certified training with SolidWorks. It's kind of a nice thing to have on your resume. That's another way to get involved in engineering. So, remember my thoughts off the back. So.
No, that's great. Appreciate that. Just to remind everyone on the call, you can type in your questions within the Zoom chat feature. We'll monitor those questions, and it's a great opportunity for you to ask any question you have to our panelists. So just a reminder, we have about 10 minutes left in our conversation. So now is the time to submit those questions. So the next question that I have is going out to Dan, and then we'll go to Stephen. So Dan, your question is, how do you see your job and other jobs in your field changing? So we'll just say in the next few years, 3 years, how do you see it changing?
Well, again, in the power industry, we take fuel and somehow turn it into electricity or other products, whether it's chilled water or hot water. So we're converting a fuel into something useful. And that's changed at Notre Dame over the past few years by changing that fuel source from coal to natural gas. And even how we utilize the natural gas is changed in that it used to be a conventional boiler, and now we're using a combustion turbine, which is essentially a jet engine attached to a generator, and then the waste flue gas coming off of that we use to create steam. So we're doing the same thing. We're making electricity, we're making other products, but we're doing that with fuel. But what we're using as fuel and how we're utilizing that changes, and that's to be more environmentally responsible and more efficient at the same time. I also see the automation and computerization of everything advancing. What used to be a manual operation where you would dispatch an operator to go out and open a valve, close a valve, change a slide gate, do something like that. They want, now we're going to actuators that will do that for you. And you do that by clicking a button on a computer that sends a signal out to that actuator. And then the other times it's completely automated in that you want to change from one system to another. So instead of going out and changing 15 valves, you click one button and the computer changes those 15 valves for you. So being able to adapt, get in the automation, the computer side of it, the electronics, that's getting more and more intense and more important.
Thank you. So, Stephen, this question goes out to you. What do you know now that you wish you would have known in high school?
Oh, I wish I had a more of a aggressive, like a mentor, in seeking out a mentor in like an internship. I really wasn't aware of internships. I wish I would have taken the opportunity to do that. Knowing what I know now, I would have taken a lot more science classes and chemistry classes. I took a lot of math, so I think that's where when I joined the military, I fell right into engineering because of my aptitude test. So it kind of fell in my lap and then went from there. But yeah, definitely I would seek out, like, especially if you know what you want to do, definitely seek out a mentor or, you know, like some type of internship or being able to maybe visit places like a factory or like civil engineering or, you know, anything that can get your foot in the door, at least seeing something. Tying school to an actual career, I think, is key. That way you can kind of see what you're learning and why you're learning it, and knowing that it does have meaning to it. You know, what the teachers are teaching you actually has meaning, and it definitely develops you into a career that, you know, of your choice. So yeah.
And engineering is so broad, so many
Oh
disciplines.
yeah.
You know, that you can really just pick engineering and then explore which discipline of engineering. This is probably one of my favorite questions because we're gonna close on probably this question. We'll see how our timing goes, but I want to toss it out to all of you. And the first response will come from Kara, and that is, what is the best thing about your job? What gets you up in the morning? What gets you excited about going to work? What is that? And, you know, the reason for asking this question, possibly last, depending on timing, is how can we motivate and inspire our students to say, I want to be like Kara and be excited about my job, and Dan and Dave and Stephen. So if you don't mind answering the question first, and then we'll just kind of go through our panelists so they have an opportunity as well.
And I think my answer is probably true for everyone on this panel. And, but it's very specific to the fact that I'm a municipal engineer. So as city engineer, I work for the city of South Bend. I work for our local community. I work and serve the public. And so every day when I get up and come to work or come to my office in my home right now, I'm serving the public, right? I'm serving and handling issues and problems that are facing the public today. And I love that part about my job. It takes a servant's heart, I believe, to do what we do. The projects and problems that we address every day are sometimes, you know, are the biggest pains to most people. And so we get a lot of complaints, we get a lot of concerns. We don't get a lot of accolades, but I think that is something, you know, it is what it is. That's the way our world works. I don't think that's anything that we don't experience in other avenues of our lives. But I think that just knowing every day that we've given 110%, we've done things to better the environment, to better the community, to better the quality of life for our residents. And I think that I think that's a great way to spend your time. So I feel very fortunate to do what I do.
Great response. Dave, if you don't mind answering that question, what inspires you, gets you excited about going to work in the morning?
For me, it's always been about the creativity of what we can come up with, because everything we do is a prototype machine. Everything we build, it's a one of a kind. It's a one of a kind throughout the world. Yeah, there might be some robots on it that everybody uses, but making that into another bigger machine that builds something for the community or for an automotive manufacturer or for whatever we build. I mean, we get into every type commercial, you name it, we're in everything. But I think it's just the drive of that. The other thing that I get kick out of is problem solving. I mean, we got problem solving all over the place at this place. I mean, yeah, you put your best foot forward on your best design, your best engineering practice, but you're going to be out there on the shop floor with the guy on the shop floor and your engineer, and you're looking at a machine out there. It says, now this doesn't really work the way I want to do. How do I get to that next step? What's the best feature to make this better? What do we got to do? Do we got to change something, or do you tweak something here? That drives me a lot. I like getting through the tough scenarios, and I like going to customers, and because part of my role is sales right now too. So I'm constantly traveling all over the country to different people, looking at their problems and coming up with, hey, what if we did it this way? Or what do you guys think? Or just the brainstorming aspect for me has been huge. That's a driving factor for me. It's just brainstorming, coming up with something that's never ever been done.
That's exciting. I'm going to toss the same question out to Stephen, and then we'll go to Dan.
What motivates me, I get to draw every day. Even though it's technical drawings, I used to draw, cartoons when I was growing up, but then I got into technical drawings. So I get to draw and then actually go out on the production floor and get to see it made. So it goes from the computer straight to a machine, and just watching that machine, I think it's so neat. Kind of like what Dave was saying, as far as problem solving. And what I like to do is looking at a process that's always been done. We've done it for 30 years this way, but finding a different way and a more efficient way to do it, I think that is so neat. And more efficient for the people that are doing the job, to make it easier for them. And it's a profitability thing for the company that can profit from great ideas. And that's what's so nice about different young people coming through, new hires, especially younger people. They have different viewpoints, and they'll blow you away with their ideas of, we've always done it for this 30 years, and they just have this different way of looking at it, and it totally changes your process in a more efficient and valuable way. And I get excited when I see ideas that come through from new hires. But yeah, that's my motivation getting up. It's just exciting for me.
Great, thank you. And then we are at 9:45. So Dan, I'm going to toss it out to you, and then we'll let Kate close for us today. Dan?
Well, what I really like about my job is that it's different every day. I maintain a list of things to do, and it's more like a recommendation of things to work on when there is no other fires. But there's a lot of times I go to work and what I had planned to do doesn't come into play at all with what I actually do. I get calls from people at the power plant or other parts of the utilities systems, and I go and I help them with the problems, working with a team, problem solving, figuring out what's wrong. I do appreciate the lack of emotion and drama that engineering a lot of times has, in that, like if you're working in the medical field and something goes wrong or you have a bad day, there could be someone who passes away or has a life-changing experience. In engineering, if a bad day, maybe a pump dies and you throw it away and you buy a new one, something like that, so that you don't have the emotional part of that. It's hard and fast items you're dealing with, but as I said earlier, I went into engineering not knowing that I wanted engineering. I had a suggestion from a friend. My daughter thought she wanted to be in engineering. She went through the Riley program and changed her mind. She's now studying biology, but still the math and technical experience she got through Mr. Ponder and through Mr. Brubaker, really helped her accelerate into college. So she's doing a great job there. So a shout out to those guys. She came home and told me about her headphones that they use there, the Beats by Ponder, and all the great knowledge that she learned there at Riley High School. So if you, even if you're thinking about going into engineering, go through the programs, get the technical education, and you can utilize it in other avenues if you decide you don't want to go into engineering.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for allowing me to moderate today. I'm going to toss it over to Kate for some closing comments.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks very much to the whole panel. Great job. I think that what Dan just said about the engineering, it's problem solving. And there are a lot of employers who, across all sectors, who say one thing that seems to be lacking in new hires is the ability to solve problems. And I think those kind of skills that you learn going through like the Project Lead the Way program at Riley or other programs at other area high schools really help you build that solid foundation for problem solving, which is great. So I appreciate all of you for sharing your thoughts. And again, to the students who are listening and educators, we encourage them to visit the Manufacturing Days landing page. It's located on the Chamber website. If you Google, if you Google South Bend Chamber, you can find your way there because the Manufacturing Days landing page is there. And the link was also dropped into the chat. All these panels are being recorded, so you can check out other sessions, industry videos, pathway pages, and a lot more out there. And there are many, many great manufacturing businesses and careers to explore in the South Bend region, and we encourage everyone to do that. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.